Thank you very much, Charlie, and so great to be here again with everybody in Brisbane. For those that don't know, my name is Laura Jones. I am your Director for the Americas. I'm based out of New York. In the US, I'm joined by Emma Eddington, who's in Phoenix, or just outside of Phoenix, and our PR lead, Lisa, who's in Los Angeles. So, there we go. To get us looking at the US. So the US does remain the third largest market for arrivals into Queensland. Unfortunately this year, just pipped by our friends in the UK for expenditure, where we now sit fourth. And then for our Canadians, we do sit within the top 10. So you'll see a little bit of a plateau in the past 12 months for American arrivals, but spend continues to increase. So of course, the message here being that it might not be volume, but it's value, and we're certainly looking to continue driving that for your businesses from the Americas. So let's look at our market conditions. I'm going to put it carefully because this is being recorded. But certainly it's been a volatile 12 months in the Americas, and you'll know that if you've got friends, colleagues and partners based there. We've had frequent and disruptive news items that have resulted in sustained turmoil. Many of you might be aware we're heading into our midterms in November, so we're certainly not expecting that to die down. If not, things will escalate. So while Americans are typically resilient to geopolitical changes, not so much to economic factors, and in the past 12 months, those two factors have really worked step in step together to create a little bit of unease about the future of outbound travel. So in April of last year, you'll remember we had our first round of tariff announcements, and our trade partners at that time, including one of our best luxury partners, indicated that the phones just stopped ringing, and that was sustained for about a 3-week period. We know reports tell us 1 in 4 Americans cancelled international trips entirely over that period, and that impact continued through the end of the financial year, with many of our partners either just meeting their 24-25 targets or falling a little short of that. Then into 25-26, we experienced a 43-day US government shutdown, the longest in our history. What that means for travel over that time is impacts on our TSA agents, our air traffic control, and also our passport issuance. And the US Travel Association reported losses of over $1.2 billion in domestic and inbound travel spend. We know, particularly here in Queensland, our routes rely on that inbound traveller as well, so that is a significant number for us. We also saw from Travel Weekly that they reported a 10% decrease on all bookings made over that period. But while confidence fluctuates, and that, as I mentioned, in response to announcement and action, we've not seen a sustained decline in intent, and that is certainly a beacon of hope. So long-haul travel is increasingly framed as something that's worth saving for, worth splurging on, and despite all headwinds, the outbound travel from the US last year grew by about 4%. It was largely to destinations of Europe, Asia and Mexico, but certainly we saw a little bit of that for Australia. However, we do know that the 2 top factors affecting US and Canadian travel is personal safety concerns, political climate, and then closely followed by the conditions of the economy. So while sentiment is positive, it's also very sensitive. Then in terms of competitive destinations for Queensland and Australia. For the US, Europe remains the most in-demand region. However, we're also seeing double-digit growth in interest to Canada, Central America, Mexico and South America. South Pacific intent is up 7%, but as I mentioned, that competition for discretionary spending remains really fierce. Drilling down to destinations, interestingly, some key growth includes France, Qatar and Saudi Arabia for Americans. All of note have held major global sporting events in the past 3 years, which is certainly something for us to keep our eye on. For Canadian travellers, shifts in destination choice were all really moderate, except with the exception of, with Americas, as you can probably expect. So that went from 55% interest in 2024 to 32% interest in 2025, and that's Canadians wanting to travel to the US. That has a direct and immediate effect on us in what we see in our trade engagement and relations, with many Canadian partners choosing not to travel into the US to participate in those events. So while the takeaway overall is that while intent is increasing, travellers are becoming more selective, cautious and responsive to those geopolitical and economic signals, all of which we can talk more about over a drink a bit later. Then if we look at some consumer insights and travel trends, we know that the profile of an American traveller is getting younger, as they are in most markets. So social continues to be a main driver of intent, aspiration, and also bookings. YouTube and Instagram lead the pack in terms of most engaged tools. TikTok this year, you might know that the US took control of, or took sale of TikTok. That did see an immediate drop off of usage, however, that's been creeping back up. We're also seeing the use of ChatGPT and similar AI tools has been notable, with 59% of millennials indicating that they'll use a chat tool for travel planning. However, interestingly, the increased use of technology has not had a dampener on the use of traditional travel advisors, with 17% more Americans indicating they're going to use an advisor in the next 2 years. To touch on advisors briefly, in the past 24 months, we've seen the highest uptake of travel advisors across the US. This is largely based on the rise in what we'd consider host agencies. So such as Fora, Direct Travel or Nexion, they might be some names that you're familiar with, but these partners offer really low stakes entry points for people wanting to get in the business, often as like a side hustle. It's not even as a full-time opportunity. And they're offered access to rates, booking platforms, training and mentorship to start selling travel. So overall, we are seeing that digital tools are shaping inspiration and planning, but it is still the human influence and expertise that's critical for long-term travel decisions and planning. We're also seeing the rise in popularity of structured and organised touring, with 65% of US travellers indicating that they're extremely likely to take a multi-day organised tour, and that's up from 46% the year before, so really substantial. Drivers of that include economy of scale of travelling with a group, being taken care of, and preferences skew strongly towards smaller group sizes, that's 20 or below. And then next up against a backdrop on discussions of over-tourism, particularly in Europe, there's been an increased demand of off-peak and alternate destination tours. So we're seeing Expedia, Departure Lounge and the Point Sky, plus our tour operator partners, all reporting a high increase in interest in travelling in off-season to avoid crowds and off-the-beaten-path locations. Our airline partners have taken note of this. Many American carriers, one notably United, have started flying into Adelaide with people looking to diversify what their Australian experience might start with. And then quickly, some niche themes we're seeing going mainstream include noctourism, which is opportunities at night, astrotourism, which in our Destination 45 refers to as dark sky tourism, and also set jetting, so travelling to locations to experience film sets and locations. Then quickly, our evolving aviation landscape, as Charlie mentioned, this is a forward look into next year. We're seeing a plus 1% increase in seats to Queensland year on year. We actually feel very comfortable about that. So obviously in the past 2 years, we've had a lot of increased capacity into Queensland. We've now got all our major US and Canadian carriers flying in. And with decreased sentiment for Australians to come to the US, our focus is on, as Ollie will say, sticking those flights. So we actually feel very good about a 0.1% increase. We have 31 non-stop flights into Queensland over our high season being October through to March. And then we also now have 6 indirects with Fiji Airways, which the US is US and Canada are a major feeder for those flights into Gold Coast and into Cairns. For our marketing activity, we continue to work with United Airlines, Air Canada, Delta, American Airlines and Fiji. It's a bit of a juggle sometimes because they are all in competition, but we look to prioritising their hub markets and the periods of when we're going into campaign with them. So talking to campaign partners, you'll see my slides a little bit different here. I've split it up into our existing partnerships, so partners that we're working with in a co-op capacity year on year, some new partners, and then ones that are on our radar. So to talk to some new partnerships quickly, I spoke of Pleasant Holidays last year. Pleasant re-entered the Australian sales market. They'd been out for quite some time. They were selling under a brand called Journeys. In the past 6 months, let's say, they've sunsetted that brand, and now Australia will be exclusively sold by Pleasant. What is exciting for us with that partnership is Pleasant is a major supplier for American Automobile Association, and they're travel advisors, and that's an audience of 58 million members, so super substantial. We've also gone back into program with Classic Vacations. Queensland will be first cab off the rank with campaign with them in April. And then for those that might be here from Southern Great Barrier Reef, we went in program for the first time with Dive Planet Travel, and they attended DEMA on our behalf, doing a great job of selling Great Barrier Reef programming up and down the coast. I am pleased to add as well, so there's 23 partners. We can now shuffle one over. So Gate 1 becomes our 24th. We're going into campaign with them next month. They're currently only selling Cairns, but they certainly have their eyes set on other places in Queensland, which is very exciting. To talk quickly some partnership activity, you might recognise this handsome gentleman, Luke Jones. He's your Brisbane representative based in Los Angeles. No relation to me, he's the other LJ. But this is him at the Signature Travel Conference with my colleague Emma, and then a snapshot of a Virtuoso direct mail piece. These are examples of our consortia activity. They're still the single most effective program we have in market. That's in partnership with Tourism Australia. And consortia provide us to Queensland about 70,000 passengers and 120,000 room nights per year, and the largest concentration of advisors that we can connect with. So really significant activity. We also continued our partnership with Avanti Destinations. This was in partnership with BETA. We're looking at focusing on Brisbane as the best possible entry point into Australia, encouraging that 3-night stay, Brisbane and surrounds, and then continuing on, preferably with the Queensland adventure. And that partnership's still ongoing. And then certainly not anything by putting this last, I suppose I'd say. We do an awful lot of heavy lifting in the PR space. The Americas continues to be a very expensive market to run consumer media, so this is our best investment to get that cut through and eyeballs. So we partnered with Tourism Australia on a journalist for Toronto Star to talk about our humpback highway. I'm not giving up on Bluey just yet. So Bluey remains one of the most watched programs in the US. We had a journalist come to Bluey as well this year to cover it in Forbes. And then some amazing partnerships with our friends at American Airlines, who gave us seats for both Zach and Erin for a couple of features. I will say we'll send it through when it comes in, but Erin Florio is currently penning the draft of the story as a love letter to Brisbane for Travel and Leisure. I hope I don't jinx that, oh my goodness. But we're really excited for that to come out. And then some opportunities recommendations. First, a really practical one. Through Direct Travel, we have a partnership with them and Tourism Australia. We're bringing down 35 or 35 advisors and 10 of their C-suite team to Queensland. It says May, April through June. Let's just dates TBC. In 2027, they'll have 3 nights in Brisbane. It is looking like we're shoring up a hotel partner, but we will be coming out to everybody with an RFP to support tour activities, transport, meals for that group of advisors, and we're really excited to host them. GEM stands for Going the Extra Mile. That's their annual reward trip, and by the time the trip goes, we'll have 18 months of promotion of that trip. So it's a big one for us. You will see our emails up there. Certainly you can contact us through TEQ and through the media links, but information and introductions to your people on the ground, your guides, etc., is always so valuable to us. It always kind of sparks the next press opportunity. So not only do we use your information for our regular emails, that's the Aussie Specialist Network of about 4,700 advisors. We have our own list of 11,000 advisors, and we send newsletters regularly. But it also helps Lisa seed stories. So right now, editors in the US are going gaga over noctourism and astrotourism. So if you're doing anything exciting in that space, let us know. And Lisa is also working on a really fun concept of will a trip to Queensland make me a morning person? Because you guys get up so bloody early. And so if you do have any early riser stories, aka coffee raves I've heard about, we'd love to hear about it. And then last but not least, those continued connections. So as you saw, we're TBC for the next 12 months on what an in-market program might look like. So for now, please utilise those ATE contacts, Down Under Summit contacts, Marketplace, and make sure you're really working your existing leads and relationships for your next best opportunity for the Americas. Great. And with that, I'm going to hand over to the lovely Ryana to round us up.